Hi, welcome to Cooking with Beefhead. I'm your host, Joshua Glenn. The recipe that we're doing today is Pedernales chili. This chili was so popular and famous in the 1960s during Lyndon B. Johnson's presidency that the White House actually had cards printed up so that all visitors to the White House could leave with the recipe. But who was the person behind this recipe and why was it so popular? Zephyr Wright. Let's get cooking and talk a little bit more about her. We're going to start off with a large pan that we've heated up, and to that we're going to add our ground beef, our onions, and our garlic, and we're just going to saute this until our meat is browned and our onions have sweated down and they're really fragrant. So this is a large amount of meat for this recipe, so do like I did and cook it in batches. It'll make your life a lot easier. Try to manage it. You can also are able to drain off the excess grease and oil from it while you're cooking the other parts of your meal. So once you get this nice and browned like you see here, looks so tasty, we're going to add that into our pot with our seasoning. We're now going to add in our oregano, our cumin, our chili powder, our salt and pepper. Now the great thing with this recipe is it's a very mild recipe. You can add way more seasoning or way less seasoning just depending on your palate and what you want to do. Recipe calls for water. Like today I'm going to be using beef stock, like a low sodium beef stock instead of water, just because it's going to give my chili so much more flavor. And then we're also going to add in some tomatoes. So the recipe originally calls for whole tomatoes. I don't know if in the 1960s maybe they didn't have diced tomatoes in the can, but I'm going to be lazy and I'm going to use already diced canned tomatoes for this. This is normally 2 cans, I just have a larger can there. And you're going to give that a really good stir and make sure everything gets blended in good together. Don't forget the hot sauce. So we're going to add your favorite type of hot sauce here, about 6 dashes or so. You could add more, add less, like I said with the seasonings. It's really up to your taste and your palate here. So if you like it spicy, add more. If you don't like spice at all, leave it out. It's really up to you. This is a very versatile recipe, just without beans. So it's quite delicious. Zephyr Wright was born in Marshall, Texas in 1914. She wasn't a lawmaker or a civil rights activist on the surface, at least. She was the Johnson family cook, a job she acquired in 1942 when Claudia Lady Bird Johnson went to Wiley College president and asked him to help her find a student that she could hire to fill the position. But Cook really doesn't describe who she was to the Johnson family. She was a perfectly matched food creator, sure, but her job was so much more nuanced than that. She helped keep the house, tend the children, be at the ready, whatever time, and with whoever Congressman Johnson came home with for dinner. And she gave Congressman Johnson, then Senator Johnson, then Vice President Johnson, and finally President Johnson a personal window into the life of people of color in the United States. When LBJ was lobbying for the 1964 Civil Rights Act, he would use the Jim Crow experiences of Zephyr Wright and her husband Sammy. They would drive from Texas to Washington, D.C., and while they were driving to the South, the Wrights and Johnsons would not be able to eat with them and could not use the restroom in the same place. It got to the point where she refused to go on these trips. She was quoted as saying, "When we drive to Texas, I have to go to the restroom like Bird or the girls. I'm not allowed to go to the bathroom. I have to find a bush and squat, and when it comes time to eat, we can't go into restaurants. We have to eat out of a brown bag, and at night, Sammy sleeps in the front of the car with the steering wheel against his neck, and I sleep in the back where we're just not going to do that again." This description came about when Johnson had asked the Wrights to take the dogs with them back to Austin. It said that Johnson walked out of the room in tears. The president would use those stories to explain why this law was so needed. There's a lot more stories that you can find about Zephyr Wright. I think one of my favorites, though, is that Zephyr Wright was in attendance when Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act in 1964, and when the president was done signing the bill, he gave her the pen he used and said, "You deserve this more than anyone else." I think that is a testament to her relationship with President Johnson. While we may all have our personal opinions about him and his politics, we can say that Zephyr Wright, through her cooking and her life, helped change the world. Once your chili comes to a boil, we are just going to turn that eye down to about a medium low, cover it up with our lid, and let it do its thing for about an hour, stirring it periodically. So after about an hour of cooking, this is what you'll come up with. A nice, thick, Texas-style chili. Now you can top this off with some sour cream and cheese, or put it like we're gonna do today on some Fritos. Now there was an uprising with this chili, as Americans thought it was strange that there were no beans in it. That Lyndon B. Johnson actually had Zephyr go on the record and say that he ate beans just so people would think he was normal. And there you have it. Zephyr Wright's chili, proving that good food can change the world. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to follow us on Facebook at Birmingham AIDS Outreach or on our website at baovhm.org. Bye.